Countdown to President Trump's 100th day in office.
The president is simultaneously calling this landmark, quote, ridiculous, while seemingly racing to cram in some major achievements, including possibly a revived health care bill before the big day arrives.
In a surprise move, the president now also says he's going to unveil plans for a major new tax cut this coming Wednesday, days before the 100th landmark.
That landmark. But all this is playing out against the backdrop of a looming government shutdown. Matt Dowd standing by here, but we're going to start with ABC's David Wright in Washington for us this morning. Hi, David.
Hi, Paula. Hi, Dan. That 100-day milestone is fast approaching, but the president is now lowering expectations. His big ambitions bogged down in the swamp he vowed to drain. President Trump, on his first visit to the Treasury Department, teased a big announcement this week.
And we'll be having a big announcement on Wednesday having to do with tax reform.
But with his tax reform effort barely begun, and the government now under threat of a shutdown, it looks unlikely he'll get done all that he promised in his Gettysburg address.
The new government of, by, and for the people. Believe me.
That's where, back in October, Trump laid out what he called his contract with the American voter.
What follows is my 100-day action plan to make America great again.
That speech outlined some big ideas to reform government.
We're going to have the wall. Mexico's going to pay for the wall. We're going to suspend immigration from terror-prone regions where vetting cannot safely occur.
And America's place in the world.
I will direct my Secretary of the Treasury to label China a currency manipulator.
Some items Trump has fulfilled, including a new Supreme Court justice to replace Antonin Scalia, a tougher line on immigration, and a threat to cut federal funding to so-called sanctuary cities. But on other promises,
the Repeal and Replace Obamacare Act.
He's fallen well short of the mark.
Remember this, we had no Democrat support, so now we're going to go for tax reform.
Now, as he approaches the 100-day mark, he calls that benchmark a ridiculous standard.
A lot of good things are happening. Thank you, folks.
You're going to get a health care bill next week?
Don't know. Doesn't matter if it's next week. Next week doesn't matter.
1 week left before he hits that 100-day mark. Not a single major piece of legislation passed. The president clearly has a few more items that he's racing to get done, but it's safe to say he's finding that governing is a bit tougher than running a business or a campaign. Dan, Paula?
Yes, certainly is. Quick question for you. You want to talk about a small diplomatic victory for the Trump campaign, though, David. President Trump quietly negotiating with Egypt for the release of an American aid worker who'd been in prison for the last 3 years. So can you tell us how this all went down?
Well, this is Aya Hijazi. You see her there in the Oval Office. She and her husband, American aid worker, they ran something called the Baladi Foundation, a haven for street children in Cairo. They've been in prison since May 2014 on trafficking charges. No evidence ever presented against them, but the president and his team worked quietly for weeks, negotiating with the Egyptian president al-Sisi, and they finally sent a U.S. government plane to fly them home.
Yeah, and the president also saying there was no quid pro quo in exchange for her as well. David, thank you for your reporting.
And al-Sisi had sat in the very chair in which she was sitting
Interesting.
just a short while beforehand. David, thank you.